pledge that the U.S. made in this past November, along with China. And you can go to the next slide. As many of you probably have heard, they came to this agreement in their CO2 reductions. And so China agreed to peak its CO2 emissions in 2030. And I'm focusing on the U.S.'s pledge, which was to cut emissions by at least 26% from 2005 levels by 2025. So the 2005 levels were 5,999.142 million metric tons of CO2. So then I did calculations based on that and found that we would need to reach 4,439.36 million metric tons by 2025. So then I used Logger Pro to graph all the data from the US from CO2 emissions from 1980 through 2012. And you can see we peaked in 2007. And then I also added over here, that's our target for 2025. Yeah. So then I was trying to find a yearly percentage decrease in our emissions that would get us to that target. So I started by just looking like, what would a 1% yearly decrease look like? And that's the blue line here. And as you can see, that doesn't quite reach the target. So then I looked at what a 2% decrease would look like. That's the green line. And based on that, I did some calculations and some guess and check work to see exactly what percentage would get us to that target. And then based on that, I found that by decreasing our CO2 emissions by about 1.27% a year, that would get us to our target by 2025 about. Yeah, so then I was trying to model that using an exponential function, and I'm actually still working on that, but yeah, it really helped me understand the way it worked, because you can see that as the emissions decrease, that it gets less steep, and that's because as you're taking 1.26% of the years, of say 2012, and the next year there will be fewer emissions, and then that percentage will be lower. So that's why it makes sense to look at it in this way. And if you remember the line that was going from 2012 to 2025, it was a straight line, and that's because it zoomed in so much, about over here, that it looks straight, but if you zoom out, you can see that it's a curved line of an exponential function. So that's it. Are there any questions?
1.27%. That sounds reasonable. Be interesting to know what that would be, what that would look like.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah. I bet we could, there'd be some pretty easy things online where you could figure out that's so many cars off the road, or, so many light bulbs, or I don't know. Seems like you could.
Yeah.
So in terms of activating your curiosity as you did this, what sort of questions may have came up for you as you were doing it?
Yeah, well, at first I was wondering what exactly was a million metric ton of CO2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I looked into that a little bit, and I found that 1 metric ton of CO2 is obviously 2,200 pounds, and that's, I think, equivalent to the amount of, it's about 1 metric ton of CO2 produced to meet the average monthly energy demand of the typical American household, which I thought was a good way to think of it. Yeah, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I wonder, I don't know if you thought about this, but there's always the question, and I know, Tom, we've talked about this, like, if you have a goal, like, we have a certain goal by 2025. So it'd be nice if we did 1.27%, but what happens if you wait until like the very last minute,
Yeah.
right? Is it the
It's
same
not good.
amount?
I mean, right, you produce, oh, exactly,
Do you
exactly.
know what I mean?
You end
Like,
up producing, I think, more carbon dioxide in the long run. Is that,
you end up doing what?
because you're,
Releasing more?
I believe so. Does that make sense? Am
I have no
thinking?
idea. I'm just curious.
If
about
you,
it.
if you keep producing all that
Yeah.
much, you'd have to find out the area, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think another next problem. You know, this is really neat. I wonder, just to make your life even harder, you should talk to Pete Simon, because he did some curves like this for Chwang years ago, and they were like fictional. But he used a natural log equation because he thought that you would sort of do the easy stuff first.
Yeah.
And that would take a large chunk out of it, and then it would get harder and harder to like reduce as you got purer and purer. So it would be interesting to talk to about it.
Yeah, that sounds so interesting.
And the other thing that's interesting is that the natural log function E is for continuous either growth or decay. And really, when we're talking about 0.5% or 1% a year, you can consider that as sort of a stepwise. Remember, we were talking about stepwise functions, so you could use a different base rather than E, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you could use 0.99 for 1%, right, decay, or 0.98 if you want to go 2%, right?
Yeah.
And that might be something to look at as a way to model it more
Yeah.
easily, maybe. Not thinking of a continuous decay continuously, because if we're continuousing, it's actually a little bit more than the yearly percentage, where we talked about that too. So you may want to look at that.
Yeah.
That might be easier to model.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you.